Hey everybody, I've got a really fun video for you today because this is the Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack Hemi Orange Edition. A little bit of a mouthful, but in this video we're going to find out how quick is this vehicle from 0 to 60, how quick is it in the quarter mile, but more importantly, what is the best way to launch a Dodge Challenger? We're going to figure out all the different drive modes, talk through all the different launch control settings, and find the best way to get this car from 0 to 60, and of course down the quarter mile. This vehicle starts out life as a Challenger RT. RT stands for Road and Track, and a Challenger RT would come equipped with a 5.7 liter Hemi V8. But because this is a Scat Pack, what you get instead is a 6.4 liter Hemi V8. This pumps out 485 horsepower and 475 foot-pounds of torque. Of course, a 392 cubic inch monster. Now this is by no means the most powerful Challenger. You've got the Hellcat with over 700 horsepower, you've got the Red Eye, you've got the Jailbreak now, so you can get a Challenger with over 800 horsepower if you so desire. But 485 is plenty of power to have a lot of fun with, get yourself in a little bit of trouble, but not so much trouble where you're going right to jail. All right, you could probably do that if you really tried. But the sweet spot in the Challenger lineup, in my opinion, RT with a Scat Pack. Now, standard RT Scat Pack is going to run you mid $40,000 range. This one, $63,500. So where is all that money going towards? Let's find out. The most expensive option on this Challenger is the $5,995 wide body package, and in my opinion, this is a must for the Challenger because, of course, it sits 3 inches wider, but the reason it sits wider is to fit these fatter tires. These are Pirelli summer tires, a 305 on an 11-inch wheel, but $6,000 gives you a lot more than just a slight flare and some bigger wheels and tires. It also gives you these Brembo 6-piston brakes and active adaptive dampers, which is pretty cool. So it's a lot of money, but you get a lot of bang for your buck. So one of the things I want to do in this video is find out the quickest way to launch this Challenger. Now we are here at our airfield, and a couple of test parameters. It is currently 88 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and we are at about 5,000 feet above sea level. So we are at elevation, which is definitely going to hamper the performance of this 6.4 liter naturally aspirated V8. But this is real world testing. This is where we live. This is where a lot of other people live as well. So we're just going to see what's the quickest way to launch this 392 Challenger. Now we've got our Solo DL. This is a GPS-based performance timer. It's been freshly calibrated, so we'll get accurate measurements. And then we can also go into the car and compare those measurements to what the car is saying. Now, this first run is going to be very simple. I'm running in automatic drive mode, so no special drive mode, traction control on, leaving it in drive. It's going to roll into the accelerator. This is like you drive this car every day, nothing special. And we're going to see what the 0 to 60 time is. So I'm going to accelerate in 3, 2, 1, roll onto the throttle. Just a teeny bit of wheel spin, but that was right at the edge of adhesion. All right, there we go. So the car is saying 5.7 seconds from 0 to 60. Our GPS performance timer, 6.24, and that happens in 310 feet. Now, once again, that was just hitting the accelerator, not forcing my foot into it, but, you know, applying a firm pressure until we hit full throttle. And 6.24, so we're gonna go back to the start of the airstrip here, same place. We'll let the car cool down just a little bit, and then we're gonna try something else. So let me go into the drive mode page here, and let's go out of auto into sport mode. So that's gonna put the electronic stability control into sport, and that felt pretty good, just kind of planting my foot on the throttle. We had just the right amount of wheel spin. Of course, you don't want no wheel spinning. You certainly don't want a lot. You just want to be right on the edge of traction. That's when you're going to get the best launch. And we're going to do the same thing because that felt pretty good. In 3, 2, 1, onto the accelerator. And once again, a very good launch, very consistently good launch. Strong shifts there. All right, so the car says 5.4. Our GPS performance timer, 5.95. So we are under 6 seconds. That was 284 feet it took to complete that run. Now, Dodge says this should be somewhere in like the low 4-second range, but of course, that is at sea level under the most ideal conditions. 5.95 feels about right for where we're at. I would probably spring for the $6,000 wide body package on the Challenger Scat Pack, but some of the interior stuff I'm not super sure is worth it. So let's talk about some of these packages. First of all, the Plus package, nearly $2,100. That's ventilated front seats, door trim panel with ambient lighting, premium stitched dash panel, and then radio/driver/seat memory settings. But that's almost $2,100. Up next, $1,600 for carbon and suede. So that gives you the suede headliner and then real carbon fiber, which I'm not super sure is needed in a vehicle that weighs over 4,000 pounds. There's also a driver convenience group, which gives you the fold-away mirrors. It gives you high-intensity discharge headlights. It gives you blind spot monitoring. That's $1,300. I'd probably go for that. This has the Karman Kardon audio group for $1,800 with the most insane bass I've ever heard. Probably wouldn't opt for that, but there's a couple of other cool things that this car does have, such as the Hemi Orange package. Now, of course, Hemi Orange is in reference to the iconic orange Hemi valve covers, which ironically this car doesn't have, but it does have orange accenting throughout, so take a look. This is called the barcode stripe. It's this off-center stripe, which does slightly look like a barcode, starts in the front, continues all the way over the roof, through the trunk. I think it looks really, really good. Other orange accenting. Down here, the RT badging surrounded in orange. We've got orange 392 badges on the side, orange disc brakes. This is a slightly different seat design as well. It's $1,500, but I do think it's kind of cool. I really do like the bright orange touches. The coolest part about the Hemi Orange package, though, are the white gauges, which just look absolutely phenomenal. I don't know about you, but those are some of my favorite gauges in the whole industry. A couple other options that this spec has: the $1,600 Torque Flight automatic transmission, 8 speeds. Actually a really good transmission. I would strongly recommend it. You also pay for the paint. This granite paint is $95. You pay extra to get the Pirelli summer tires on it and a couple other little bits and bobs. $63,500 is a lot of money. We actually owned a long-term Hellcat back in 2016, and I want to say it was around that price, but of course with 700 horsepower, I would probably buy this car as a scat pack with the wide body and nothing else except maybe the Hemi Orange package. Knock some money off that total price, because yeah, sure, some of the interior accents are nice, but they don't really transform the car, and I'd rather save that money and put it towards those rear tires, which will probably be roasting. All right, track mode. So that has put the electronic stability control into the track setting. And once again, we're getting very consistent launches, so I think I'm just gonna plant it and we'll see what happens. In 3, 2, 1, plant it. A little bit more wheel spin that time, but still a very good start. Now those are some firm shifts. All right, so the car is saying 0 to 16 5.3, and the Solo DL 5.99. So a little bit slower than the previous run. You could be getting a little bit of heat soak. You can try to let the car cool down a little bit between runs. But let's try some other settings here. So our fastest time was in sport mode so far. So let me go back to sport. But let's go and try activating launch control. Launch control in the Challenger offers a range of RPMs that you can launch at, going from 1,200 all the way up to 3,300. So I'm gonna put the car in a sport mode, and let's try doing a 1,500 RPM launch. So what we're gonna do is basically plant my left foot on the brake, plant my right foot on the accelerator, and then that'll activate launch control. Push the button here to launch, press brake, and quickly apply full throttle. To launch, release brake. All right, so that was a little bit more wheel spin. Once again, very fast shifts. All right, that was 0 to 60 in 5.67 seconds. So launch control actually did make a difference there. The car's saying 5.1, but we're going off of the GPS 5.67, and that was a very, very cool launch. We got, I think, the perfect RPM setting there, but for science, let's go ahead and try to bring it up just a little bit higher. So that was at 1,500 RPM. Let's try launching at 2,000 and see what happens there. So we're gonna do the same procedure, hard on the brake, and then launch it at 2,000 RPM this time. And we'll see what the performance difference is. I do love this orange Scat Pack logo there with the little rumble bee. Looks really, really good. Now the crazy thing about the Challenger is that this generation has been around since 2008. This is a 2022 model year, so we're talking 14 years old. I was 11 years old when this car launched, imagine that. But even in 2022, this car still holds up and it still sells like absolute hotcakes. Last year, if I'm not mistaken, it outsold the Camaro and the Mustang. Pretty amazing for a car well over 10 years old. I think there's been 2 or 3 generations of Mustang since this car was initially launched. I think 2 generations of Camaro, but it still holds up. Now, the last facelift for the Challenger was back in 2015, and they've updated it since, but it's been real minor tweaks. And it really doesn't need a whole lot to stay relevant in the market, because this is the last true American muscle car on the road. A big, comfortable, heavy car with an enormous V8 shoehorned under the hood. And it's amazing how versatile this platform is, all the way from a base V6 under $30,000 to the all-wheel drive Challenger, to the Hemis, to the Scat Packs, to the Red Eyes, to the Hellcats. There was a Demon thrown in there. There's jailbreaks and all sorts of special editions. But every time they come out with a new one, Challenger fans are interested. And folks that aren't necessarily diehard Challenger fans are also interested, because Dodge has done a great job of keeping this car relevant and at the top of the news cycle. Now, a couple of things which really make this car stand out. I love this low front splitter, especially with the wide body. It looks like you can cook an egg on that puppy. It's super wide. The grille looks fantastic, absolutely amazing. Egg crate style grille with the vintage Challenger script, which dates all the way back to 1970 up front here. Now, do you remember when the Hellcat launched, folks were really stoked about the air intake being in the headlight? Well, this car has the headlight cutouts on both the driver and the passenger side, with this cool checker pattern actually inside that little unit. I'm not convinced that they're actual Ram air intakes when I was looking under the hood. I'm not totally sure on all the benefit it gives you, but at least it looks very symmetrical now. Full LED headlights on this one. You've got this big grille, this big aggressive hood, excuse me, which first debuted on the Hellcat with these venting heat extractors up top here. And then the roof line is just amazing. The way it sweeps back here to this point, it still looks good all these years later. And the wide body kit has kind of been an essential aspect to this car's real mean demeanor. I mean, I see a ton of Challengers on the road. Most of them are narrow body and they look good, but not quite as good as that full-on wide body. In the back here, we got that little spoiler, LED taillights, which came out in that 2015 refresh. The tailpipes, I wish they'd go to something a little bit more fresh, maybe a quad setup. These I'm not super stoked on anymore. But if you want a big, comfortable car that sounds like God laughing himself, the Challenger is still it. And maybe this one is an incredible value, but it still is a great way to get nearly 500 horsepower in the mid $40,000 range if you want. The trunk is huge. It holds a ton of stuff. So you can see it just swallowed up our gear, no problem. You can fold down the rear seats for a little bit more storage. It's just awesome. It really is. Now, there are a few downsides. Even with some of the premium interior features, this interior is looking quite dated. Lots and lots and lots of kind of flat black design. It's just not a very inspiring look. This one does have the flat bottom steering wheel, part of that wide body package. The seats are okay, they're essentially loungers, but like it still has the older Uconnect system, the 4. I'd love to see them upgrade that to the 5. Although this car is so long into its generation cycle, I'm not sure we'll have a chance to really see that realized. But here's a great thing, right? Car is 14 years old. At this point, they've probably worked out just about every kink, and I love that there are so many options to really specify and customize your Challenger to exactly what you want. It's an aging design, but it still looks fresh, it still sounds amazing, and it still performs pretty darn well. All right, launch control, 2,000 RPM, activate launch control. Got my foot on the brake, full throttle to launch release brake. Launch control works well. A little bit of wiggle as we hit second, 5.52, so we're getting quicker. So the last launch was 5.67, this one 5.52, and that was from 2,000 RPM. So I think we should step it up to 2,500 and see what happens then. All right, launch control set at 2,500 RPM. Activate launch control. Hard on the brake and apply throttle. Release to launch. All right. Into second. There's third. Oh, got quicker even still, 0 to 60 in 5.49, and that was at 2,500 RPM. So I think we're quickly approaching the sweet spot of RPM off the start and wheel spin. So let's go up to 2,800. Let's go to the full 3,000. See what happens at 3K. We'll give that a go, and then we'll try at 3,300, which is the max, and see if we see any improvement. But yeah, it's looking pretty promising. So this is going to be a 3,000 RPM launch, and we'll see what happens. 3,000 RPM. Oh, I didn't like that one very much. I'm not sure that's going to be much quicker. 5.98. So I think that time we got too much wheel spin. Felt like it was really struggling for traction there. But just for the heck of it, let's go all the way up to 3,300 on the launch control, and we'll see if that changes. It also did this weird kind of pulsating thing with the accelerator. So we'll try 3,300 RPM, and then we'll start running some quarter miles and see if that has any impact on the acceleration. So this is going to be 3,300, the full enchilada. This is as high as launch control let you go. Okay, that did not feel good. All right, let's try that one more time. Yeah, too much wheel spin. So that's too high of an RPM to launch at. Yeah, 6.29, so we're definitely slowing down. So it looks like 2,500 launch control active is gonna be the sweet spot there. And the fastest time that we hit was, let me go into the memory, 5.49 in 256 feet. So 5.49 seconds. So now we know the quickest way to launch the Challenger is gonna be launch control 2,500 RPM, and I'm in sport mode. Let's go change, 1/8 mile, quarter mile. Perfect. All right, we got it set up for quarter mile, 88 degrees outside, 2,500 RPM at the launch control, and go for it. Oh, really good launch. That is definitely the sweet spot, 2,500 RPM. It is ripping off those shifts, shifting all the way at red line, actually over red line, over 6,000 RPM. There's 10 seconds, 12 seconds in the quarter. So that was 14.15. 14.15 in the quarter at 104 miles an hour. Pretty respectable at a mile above sea level. Now, of course, a Hellcat with that supercharger bolted to the top of the engine, we'd probably see some slightly quicker times, but 14.15, very respectable at a mile above sea level. If you ever go to Bandimere, you'll see a lot of Challengers running, in some cases, high 14s, even mid 15s, but that's pretty good, actually, for a naturally aspirated vehicle. So we'll give it one more go, see if we can get it any quicker. Now, of course, this vehicle does have line lock, where you can lock the front brakes up, do a massive burnout, get some heat in those rear tires. I don't think we need it though, because we are getting really perfect launches at the 2,500 RPM threshold on the launch control. Just the perfect amount of wheel spin, not getting any traction control intervention in sport mode here. It's really running very, very well off the line. Foot hard on the brake. There's 2,500 there, and off we go. Once again, very consistent. No power cut. Man, this thing shifts over the red line, which is just nuts. There's 10 seconds, 11 seconds. Come on, baby. All right, 14.32. So a little bit slower there. We may have started to get some heat in the engine. That was a 104 again. So pretty consistent. Now on paper, 14 seconds in the quarter and 5.49 to 60 doesn't sound all that impressive, but you gotta keep in mind we're up here at a mile above sea level, and naturally aspirated engines, they just suffer a lot more, especially compared to turbochargers and superchargers. But it was a very consistent car. It ran very consistently, not only in the 0 to 60 test, but also the quarter. I ran it a few times even off camera. I'm very impressed with that, actually, and this would be a great vehicle if you're at like a time attack trial, perhaps at a drag strip, right? You could really set consistent times now that you know that secret to the launch. So 2,500 RPM, sport mode, hard on the brake, hard on the gas, at least up here at altitude, it really gives you a consistent launch every time, and we got mid 5 seconds 0 to 60 across the board. Now I'd love to do the same test with a Hellcat, see what that performance difference is, but overall, it's a little bit expensive. It's maybe not as quick as I'd kind of hope on paper, especially up here, but overall it's a great car. It looks fantastic, makes a perfect noise, and is a great comfortable cruiser for those straight US roadways. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, a huge thank you to Ian behind the camera and all of you watching. We'll see you on the next video.